Hello everyone, this is David again, and we are on Season 1, Episode 6, titled Mind War, the original Babylon 5 series. The episode starts out with something called a Psy Corps trying to intercept a transport with a runaway rogue telepath. Now, they have these nice little ships, and they have the big Psy emblem on it. It's a Greek alphabet, and I know we use it in nursing shorthand, meaning psychiatric or something to do with, like, our psych patients will just use that little Greek symbol. And I'm sure you're saying, well, who's the Psy Corps? Briefly, Psy Corps is the group back on Earth that is supposed to oversee anybody with psychiatric or psychic or telepathic abilities. So, switch back. Catherine and Jeff are in Jeff's Sinclair's quarters and just basically settling in and being a domestic couple. Switching on back, a guy named Jason Ironheart docks in the Babylon5 station. Switch back over, another visionette. A gentleman was talking to Talia Winters about what is it like being a telepath, and she quips back to him something along the lines of being a teep, and teep is short for telepath. You also have teeks for telekinetic. Being a teep is like staying in a hotel room and you can hear the couple next door. You can try and block them out, but the noise is always there. And I thought that's kind of an interesting thing. Imagine what it's like to be able to hear that couple next door. And I'm sure everyone's been in a hotel room where you're like, I wonder what they're doing. You know, especially when you hear that bang, bang, bang up against the wall right where the bed is supposed to be. Now, trust me, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done that. But imagine, though, it being like that 24/7 and you can't shut it off. And we find out later that right about the time of puberty is when most people with psi abilities kind of wake up and start hearing these noises. To me, that would just be absolutely drive me batshit crazy, because like one nurse said when I was talking with them about various habits that we have, he says you're one of those people who, if a mouse farts in the next room, you're wide awake then. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it. I cannot sleep with any external noise going, which is actually good because I live in an area where there's literally a river in my backyard, and that white noise pretty much drowns everything out. Otherwise, like when it's tourist season, and right now when they're doing a lot of construction and I can hear the bang bang and the drilling and stuff, I don't get very much sleep. And so you'll see me as I'm recording these with various levels of no sleep. So anyway, that's part of the reason why. Two characters enter, and one of them is going to be extremely important, and one of that person that I'm talking to is a guy named Mr. Bester. Now, you will know or remember it's actor Walter Koenig, and he played Mr. Chekov on the original Star Trek series. So, and he has a very important recurring role on Babylon5. And he has a female cohort, and they're all dressed in black, and they have the Psy emblem on, and it turns out that they are what's called Psy Cops. And they are the ones that have the highest rating of a P12. All P12 people with Psy abilities are automatically made Psy Cops. And their job basically is to police the rest. Well, as one person quipped, who keeps watch on the watcher? You know, they have nobody over them, they have nobody watching them. And so this is ability, or these is a group of people who have the ability to read other people's minds, and they have no oversight. and that becomes a big recurring sticky issue in the Babylon 5 universe. And a lot of it will end up centering around Mr. Alfred Bester, a.k.a. Mr. Chekov. There is switching on to a Catherine Sakai, and she is doing business with a group that wants her to go to Sigma 957 with the permission of the Narn regime. Well, Sigma 957 turns out to be very important in the Babylon 5 universe. So when you see that, make a mental note to keep track of that in your brain, because that will become extremely important. Basically, the reason the Psy Corps are there is there's a rogue telepath, Jason Ironheart, on Babylon 5, and they are tasked with nabbing him and dragging him back so that the Psy Corps can take care of him, basically. And they don't go into a lot of that because, of course, everything that you'll find with the Psy Corps is on a need-to-know basis, or has to do with the defense of the Earth Alliance, or anything of that nature. So when you have a group of people who can read your mind, and they have nobody to oversee them, and they're starting to, as you'll see in a lot of these episodes, they're starting to branch out their tentacles of power. And I'm sure you can guess in your mind how scary that is. And this episode kind of starts to delve into the unchecked power of the Psy Corps. And you'll see that becomes a big, and in fact, spoiler alert, this winds up becoming an all-out war between people with psi abilities who say, hey, you know, we're abusing our own power, we can't do this, and the Psy Corps and those people who are for rules of law and order, who basically are saying, you know, hey, look, you know, you created this system, and this is the way it's got to be. And if you don't like it, well, too bad. Ironheart starts having what they call mind quakes, and evidently what happened was he was the subject of experiments when he was reassigned to the Earth Alliance military ops. And they were trying to, at first, develop a stronger telepath. At least that's what he thought. And as it turns out, what they were trying to do is develop a strong and stable telekinetic. Because as he said, and this dropped a little bit of knowledge here, basically he said at one point that only 1 out of every 1,000 people is a telepath. And out of that, only 1 out of every 1,000 telepaths are telekinetics, and half of them are clinically insane. So you can kind of see, you know, there's a lot of telepaths and a few telekinetics running around, but they're all, of course, heavily outnumbered by, they call them the normals, or people like you and I. So you can see that the dividing line, the divisions are kind of starting between people who have telepathic or psi abilities and people like you and I, even though people with psi abilities are vastly outnumbered. And you'll see the divisions start, the abuse of power start in this episode. And it also goes into a little bit of Garibaldi. He tends to be a little curmudgeon, but he hates Psy Corps, and he he didn't make a suggestion. Alfred Bester read his mind and basically said, anatomically impossible, Mr. Garibaldi, but you're welcome to try anywhere, anytime. And basically, you're like, huh? And what it's implied is that Garibaldi wants to, shove his head up his derriere to put it politely, and that becomes a recurring Babylon 5 mem. That's why I'm bringing it up. So, G'Kar, switching back, requests a heavy fighter to intercept Catherine Sakai. And you're kind of left wondering, what's going on here? Why is G'Kar requesting fighters to intercept Catherine Sakai? You know, is he trying to, because evidently Sigma 957 has significant quantities of a rare earth mineral that is needed, and the implication is that G'Kar wants it for himself, basically, and wants to stop Sakai from stealing it. Jason, switch back to Jason Ironheart is having mind quakes that are starting to disrupt the station, and evidently what happened when they gave him all these injections and treatments and everything is he was having mind quakes. As his psi abilities increased, he would have these mind quakes. Now these mind quakes are now big enough to shake a 5-mile long space station. So you got to know that that's one hell of a headache. You know, aspirin would have to be at least, 1,000 pounds and about 6 feet in diameter to cure that headache. By the way, don't take aspirin for a headache. Take Tylenol. As long as you don't have any liver issues. Switches on back to Catherine Sakai, arriving at Sigma 957, and she starts her mineral survey. Switching on back to Babylon 5 again, Bester and his female associate plan to shut down Ironheart with a code word that was sent telepathically. Now, Sinclair is like, he's got to have the ability to block you, and Bester is like, well, probably maybe one of us, but definitely not both of us. Alfred Bester, as you'll find out, is an extremely arrogant man, and basically believes he's unstoppable in the Psy world. And that will come to have major implications, leading to all-out war. So, little spoiler alert there. Jason Ironheart arranges a meeting with Captain Sinclair through Talia Winters as an intermediary. We find out Talia Winters was a student of his, and eventually they ended up becoming lovers, which is why he picked Babylon 5 to go to, because knowing the good feelings between him and Talia, he thought he might have a sympathetic ear, if you will, if he went to Babylon 5. Switching on back to Catherine Sakai, and what happens is a huge alien ship comes out of nowhere. Now, anyone who knows the Babylon 5 universe knows that this is one of the first ones. Now, I'm sure you're saying, what the heck is a first one? If you've never seen Babylon 5, if you've seen it, you know exactly who they are. Very, very briefly, this is a group of aliens who were the first ones to achieve sentience in the galaxy. According to the Babylon 5 universe, billions of years ago. Now, can you imagine what would happen if you met, and eventually in the Babylon 5 series, you will meet the first one, a guy named Lorien, who was the first individual in the entire universe to engage or gain sentience. A little tongue twister there. And long before Earth was even created. I mean, could you imagine what kind of powers a being like that must have? And in fact, G'Kar compares it to us, humans, Narns, and stuff like that. We're kind of like ants to this huge, gigantic group of beings that are billions of years old. And they become very important later on in the series, is why I'm mentioning that. But this first one, the ship just ends up draining Catherine Sakai's ship out of power. And she starts going into Sigma 957's atmosphere. And what happens is, right before her ship's about to burn up, a couple of Narn fighters that, as I mentioned earlier, Jakar had sent to Catherine Sakai. We find out now that these Narn fighters were actually sent to rescue her. Yay! So they come out of hyperspace, they establish communications, they said, hey, Citizen Jakar, or not Citizen Jakar, but Jakar of the Third Circle, whatever that is. It's part of the circles of power in the Narn government. We'll find out later. Jakar Third Circle sent us here, and we're going to take you back to Babylon 5 free of charge. So, switching on back, Bester and his associate, in kind of a climactic scene, intercept Ironheart and try and send their little fail-safe code. Well, Sinclair ends up punching Bester, and his associate, in a move of sheer brilliance, she tries to pull a gun, or PPG I should say, on Ironheart. And Ironheart just basically says, you can't harm me, little lady, and basically vaporizes her in an instant. And we find out that Ironheart is getting the ability to see past matter and energy into the subatomic particles of the universe. Now, anybody who can do that, a lot of people in the Buddhist community, especially the Dalai Lama himself, have said that a being of that nature would be, in fact, a Buddha or an enlightened one. And you'll see a little bit of Buddhist, Taoist, and Hindu type effects in a lot of the Babylon 5 universe. Ironheart gets to a ship and ends up transforming into a being of light and subatomic energy, and basically says that humans weren't meant to have this power. Don't try these kind of experiments again, and I'll see you in 1,000,000 years. And it becomes more important, especially in the Babylon 5 universe, and I believe it's deconstruction of falling stars. Humans and Minbari will end up becoming beings of light and energy, and basically become like the Vorlons of the future, of the very, very, very far distant future. And Jason Ironheart was kind of the first one able to do that sort of thing. And that's basically starts opening the little onion, what JMS, J. Michael Straczynski, believes will happen to the future of humanity. So, in the comments section, can people put down, do you think that JMS is going to have that sort of scenario of the first ones? Do you think they will make an appearance in the new series? Why or why not? I kind of would like to see it explored a little bit more in the new series, as well as the war between the darkness and the light, between the shadows and the Vorlons and the humans and everybody else. But that's kind of my personal preference. Write down what your personal preference is. It'd be interesting to see. And of course, as always, like, comment, subscribe, because if we get over 1,000 subscriptions, I can monetize this and make a more visually attractive videos for you, so you don't have to always see my ugly face all the time. So like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hope you all have a good rest of your day.